Well, Sleepy Joe went on primetime last night.
Fuck.
He spoke about the devastation, the destruction, the outright insanity that is going on in the war against Israel.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Led by Hamas, and also his unwavering support for Israel.
What?
What? No? Oh, it was all about Ukraine.
What the fuck?
And when asked about Israel, he said, who?
What kind of shit is that?
I'm Jasper Gonzo, and this...
What, are you retarded?
It's what's next. Hey, what's up, guys? Jasper Gonzo, what's next? Your daily dose. Hope you guys are feeling good today on this Friday. Yes, TGIF. We're at the end of the week, going into the weekend. And, of course, another hell of a week. Joe Dementia. Yes, Sleepy Joe, Sloppy Joe, Falling Downstairs Joe. You know, whatever name you want to throw at him. Our dear leader-in-chief finally came out on primetime last night to talk about the devastation, the destruction, the outright insanity that is going on against the attack against Israel by Hamas and his unwavering support for that country. But sadly, no, he talked about Ukraine because, of course. This coming from Breitbart, Breaking Biden author, 5 takeaways from Joe's duplicitous Oval Office address about Ukraine. Not about Israel, about Ukraine. Woof. Joe Dementia gave a rare Oval Office last night that began with a clear condemnation of Hamas terror, but quickly shifted focus to a cynical, politicking narrative setting, even while Americans are still being held hostage. Couple of takeaways. 1. The address was about Ukraine, not about Israel. Spent over a year trying to get inside Joe's head while researching for the book, and in that time, learned a few of his new moves. One of them is they try to shift the political focus, to something more favorable for him while his back is against the wall. This is what he tried to do last night. The dominant news cycle right now, Islamic terror directed at Israel, is a terrible one for Joe. Noted in the book, Joe Biden has harmed Israel in numerous ways over his presidency and vice presidency while simultaneously enabling terrorists and their funders. He is also clearly perceived as a weak target by our adversaries around the world. Yes, China and Russia continue laughing. He's also clearly perceived, so the longer the media is focused on Israel, Jews, Hamas, rockets, decapitated babies, American hostages, the worse Joe looks. His political instincts told him to switch gears. He did that in his speech last night, and it was not only clumsy, but clearly offensive. Actually, it was an attempt at hoodwinking. The world thought that the speech would be about Israel, and he did talk about Israel, but the speech was really about Ukraine. Yes, his first love. He tried to connect Israel and Ukraine in order to suggest to Americans that if you support Israel's war for their own survival, you must also support limitless taxpayers' resources being sent to Ukraine. $150 billion and counting. After those funds make a pit stop in the bank accounts of U.S. defense contractors, of course. He ended up saying nothing newsworthy about Israel or Hamas, yet he revived the Ukraine funding discussion. Yes, duplicitous Joe used dead Jews as an excuse to give his speech about Ukraine funding from the Oval Office, no less. Number 2, Earth to Joe. Ukraine and Israel are not the same. Joe Pollack beat him to the punch on this one. Israel's not Ukraine. Israel's a much closer ally. It is a democracy. Unlike us, we're a republic. And it has been for far longer than Ukraine. Its intelligence assists U.S. counter-terror operations. Its technology, like the Iron Dome, keeps American troops safe. Israel has taken bullets, or rather Scud missiles, for the U.S., allowing Iraq an attack during the Gulf War without retaliating, because the U.S. needed help to keep our allies in its wartime coalition, and millions of Americans, Christian and Jew, love Israel, visiting by the millions. The last point is crucial. Israel has been exemplary stewards of the Holy Land, a place where Jews and Christians alike make pilgrimages by the millions. This is fortunate for America, itself a Judeo-Christian nation. If Israel is wiped off the map, the stated objective for those who are at war against it right now, then the Holy Land will be in jeopardy. I would also add that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and Israel is not. That counts. Number 3, Joe's false construct, tying Israel's survival to Ukraine's spending. Joe wants his Ukraine agenda to continue to get the funding. His base really likes to send money to Ukraine, and he needs his base to be happy if he wants to get reelected, which is probably not going to happen. Yeah, it's going to be a no. Yeah, he's not getting reelected. Sorry, kids. His ultimate goal appears to be to tie funding from Israel to Ukraine in subsequent spending packages. This is a false construct, and Americans should reject it. The thought that helping Israel stave off extinction is conditional on sending another bag of goodies to grifters in Ukraine is just totally bogus. It is, again, offensive. If we're going to tie anything to Israel funds, it should be other issues of urgent national security importance like solidifying our border, but we know Joe really doesn't give up about our border, now does he? Number 4, Joe wants more cash for the military-industrial complex. Documented in the book, Biden and his cabinet are in league with the military-industrial complex, no more so than Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Blinken, referred to as Secretary of Boeing, was the managing director of the Penn Biden Center, home of Joe's infamous classified documents. Remember those? Yeah, they got somehow memory hold or something like that. And co-founded West Exec Advisors, a boutique DC consult focused on advising companies on geopolitical risks and emerging opportunities. He also helped orchestrate the Russian disinfo hoax letter that got Hunter Biden and a laptop from hell censored before the 2020 election, along with 50 of his deep state buddies. How nice. Blinken's one example of many in Biden's administration. Joe loves to fund the defense industry because it's past where future cabinet officials go to bag cash while stints running our government. Between stints. In his Oval Office address, Biden specifically called for missiles for air defense, batters made in Arizona, the artillery shells made in 12 countries, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and so much more. He then went on to suggest that they're patriotic to funnel unlimited amounts of your tax dollars to the ever-expanding security state. The same security state that bankrolls people like the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who famously sat on the board of Raytheon, and the list goes on. Using the death of Israelis and Americans, especially children, to shake the can for a defense industry was not merely a little too on the nose, it was grotesque. And number 5, Joe's thinking about the two-state solution, Islamophobia. The fact that he's even bringing up the two-state solution, which will never, ever happen, see Donald Trump, debate right now, days after babies were murdered in their homes by Hamas, and while Americans are still hostage, seemingly wildly out of touch. Sadly, it's probably not. These comments were likely a sop to the pro-Hamas faction of our society, a group of people, a group of idiots and morons, seemingly control many of our major newsrooms. And what was another low point for Joe? Joe scolded Americans for Islamophobia 2 decades ago, despite the fact that radical Muslims targeted Jews for torture, rape, and murder just this month. I know many of you in the Muslim American community are outraged, saying to yourself, here we go again, with Islamophobia and distress we saw after 9/11. The timing would seem a little bit off, unless you see it as a dog whistle to extremists in his political base, which is exactly was. Can we at least try to free the hostages before we get a lecture on why we need to be careful not to hurt people's hypothetical feelings? Despite his constant haranguing about unity, Joe Dementia rarely missed an opportunity to divide so long as he believes it advances his political position. Excuse me. Once again, Sleepy Joe wakes up from his slumber and shoves both legs down his throat. Ukraine here, Ukraine now, Ukraine forever. That's Joe. And that's what it was last night. He basically threw a spattering, salt and peppering of Israel throughout his speech. But, well, you support Israel, you got to support Ukraine. Well, if you want money for Israel, you got to support Ukraine. Well, damn Islamophobia and 9/11, it's all happening again. But it doesn't happen in Ukraine. Ukraine's nice. Ukraine's good. Captain Sweatpants. Good person. Good people. They're just trying to fight this proxy war against big bag Russia. But Israel, well, Israel's a different story now because Israel deserved to get picked on and, they they brought it upon themselves. Hamas had no choice but to defend itself, if you read between the lines. At the end of the day, Joe made a complete ass out of himself like he does every single time he opens his mouth. Now, what was surprising is that he didn't mention ice cream or mentioning which child he smelled that day, because, that would just be wrong. I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is What's Next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, subscribe to it, hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a thing, and we'll see you next time. Peace.